Hello and welcome back to Disruptive, coming to you live on social media. Remember, please get involved in the conversation. You can find us on Twitter using the hashtag DisruptiveLive or message us on our Facebook page.
Yes, and we are very lucky. We've got a very special guest in the studio today, Matt Smith, who is the CEO of SteelEye. Matt, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Please tell us a little bit about you and about SteelEye.
Sure. So SteelEye is a cloud-based financial markets regulatory and compliance platform, and we're really here to help drive complexity and cost out of the burdens that many financial firms are facing around the world today in order to conform to these regulations. My background's technology. I spent many years working in financial services as a chief information officer for a global trading house. It was a very large firm, and in there I learned a lot about ways that we can use innovation to drive cost out, and I also feel very strongly and passionately that we can pass on some of those learnings to the market and help other firms achieve some of the things that we managed to achieve.
So, Matt, I mean, a lot of companies look at compliance as a burden, but what's your viewpoint? Is compliance friend or foe?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is something that we've thought a lot about. Now, one of the taglines that we use at SteelEye is, don't just comply, compete. And we really believe that. I think the real answer to it will boil down to how firms approach some of the problems that they face. Historically, compliance organizations and technology groups that are trying to solve these challenges would look at it in a very linear way. So as we look back over time of financial markets regulations, I mean, there's dozens, hundreds of these things that have come out, but the big ones recently was MiFID I, which came out in 2007, and firms addressed that. And then soon after, we had Dodd-Frank come out in the US, and again, similar challenges, but firms addressed it independently. Then Europe came through with the EMIR regulation and the REMIT regulation. And again, linearly people attack these things, and the Market Abuse Directive, which came out in July last year, a whole raft of firms again just did this independently. And then you now have MiFID coming into effect, MiFID II, which is the most expansive financial markets regulation in history. And we really believe that if firms focus on solving the problem right this time, that not only will future regulations become easier to bear and to conform to, but there's a huge amount of value hidden within that data. And we have built a platform that helps firms bring that data together and find that value.
So instead of it being a pure cost center, must comply in order to keep trading and satisfy the watchdogs and the regulators, now it can become a profit center. You can actually discover valuable insights within the data.
Absolutely, and it's not just about, and there certainly are a lot of commercial potential opportunities to come out of the data, but there's operational efficiencies that can be achieved. We actually have an advert coming out in British Airways Business Life magazine in November that is really about looking at MiFID II as not being a burden, but being as potentially one of the best things that your firm will ever have to do in terms of helping you drive those efficiencies and achieve value from your data that would otherwise be fragmented all over your firm and never leveraged, just dormant data stored in disparate sources, never to bring value to a firm.
Wow, so how did you get into this? What's kind of the pathway, the journey that you took to get to this position today?
Yeah, so I mean, my journey started a long time ago. I spent my entire career in IT and worked my way up to Chief Information Officer. And we had a very large business. It was a $100 billion firm, and we had offices all around the world. And the CEO came to me and asked me to build a data warehouse. And the problem was just this: he had disparate information all over the place. So I got my team together, and we met in a room in Hong Kong, actually. And there was about 7 of us, and we had a mix of talent. We had technologists from the banks, we had technologists from media, from Amazon, and we sat down and looked at the problem differently. And that was, we didn't look at the problem that the CEO was trying to solve. We looked at the data. And I laid out some principles as we went about the journey. And number 1, it was, let's understand our data, because technology and data sometimes don't align. And let's make sure that we pick technology that makes sense for the data that you're talking about. So we ended up with having multiple different data platforms. So we had some Cassandra, which is the Facebook database, and some Hadoop, and we looked at reference data and operational data and trading data. And then we built a whole application scaffolding platform on the top of it. And at the end of it, we realized we had something really meaningful, more meaningful than our firm would ever have been able to understand. And a long story short, at one point we all ended up finding ourselves out of that firm, and we went to rebuild this technology stack. I ended up actually going to a big financial services software house, and my team rebuilt it. And they were backed by a very large brokerage firm in the UK. They took the collective learnings of everything that they would do differently from the first time and applied it to this. Now, the first thing that they ended up learning was that these NoSQL technologies like Hadoop and Cassandra have no indexing capability. So there's no real way to search it. So they creatively came up with an idea of wrapping it with a search database. And that was where our users interacted with and they do today with the data, which is hugely efficient. We can work with billions of records as efficiently as we can with 5. And we then learned actually there's no real value for us in this scenario to have some of these NoSQL technologies, so we stripped that out. So we started to simplify it. One of the other principles that we wanted to apply was to drive cost out, and we could do that with cloud, and we should probably talk a little bit about cloud and what it means. We really believe we've taken very complicated problems because of this data platform, heavily simplified them, and driven huge amounts of cost out. And firms that are using our system now are reaping the benefit of that. And then you go back to all the valuable insights they get. It's pretty exciting.
So there's a lot of new technology you're introducing to solve traditionally quite an old regulatory compliance problem. I mean, how do you sort of see the movement from companies that use the old systems? You use the old systems yourself in your background, to implementing these new technologies? Do they come to you and you say, we've got the whole stack sorted, or do they have to kind of move across in a phased fashion?
Well, it's really fascinating, because the challenge that the firms that are our clients have to face, and this is really every financial firm in Europe, and even ones participating in Europe from other countries around the globe, is they have to build a data warehouse. They have to do what I had to do in my last firm. And many of these firms have tried and failed. Some have never even fathomed having to take this on, but they have to do it. So if you took the traditional technology route, you will end up where many historic firms have ended up, which is a very painful, costly, expensive, and complicated exercise. And likely you won't succeed on the back end of it. By taking the collective learnings of years of failure and applying it to new technologies, we're able to actually succeed in this, and succeed in it in ways far beyond what firms would have ever fathomed possible years ago. So I think as companies start to look at these new technologies, they will be able to achieve their goals. They have a very short time window in which to do so. This regulation comes into effect in January 3rd. Mm-hmm. Now, the regulators are saying there's a bit of a window, but they don't have much time. And this is some of the incredible value you get from cloud, right? We talk about cloud, and the speed at which we can integrate and onboard, because it's a cloud-based platform, we can cut months, 3-6 months out of a project. If a financial firm went to buy hardware and put it in their data centers, that can take months on its own. Yeah. And we start from the pretense of the system's there and ready to go. Now it's about getting your data from its source into our consolidated engine.
Do you find firms are open to the cloud, or is there a little resistance? Do you have to persuade people to do it?
It's again a really good question. It was one that we wrestled with in the early days. And earlier versions of the platform could be cloud-based or it could be on-premise. And we had to make a decision whether or not we go all in. And we went all in. And the reason we went all in was we felt that we could get the best value for our clients from a cost perspective. You add in the speed of execution, that helps as well. And to the old debate, do people feel comfortable going to the cloud? I haven't come across a single firm that we've come to that has said no. And more importantly, you talk to people about private cloud and their own data centers or comms rooms and AWS and Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure. Microsoft, Google, and AWS will invest more than any of the smaller private clouds could afford into security, because it's at the heart of everything that they do. And I think as firms start to get more comfortable with that and realize, actually, forgetting your compliance data, a huge portion of our services around the world go through these data centers, that, why would you be afraid of it? We encourage firms to brace it, not just because we're a cloud-based company, because it is the way that you're going to be able to solve your problems more efficiently, at a far lower cost, and more rapidly.
And I assume a lot of these corporations are international in nature. So if you've got to consolidate the data, it makes sense to do it in an environment that enables consolidation, as opposed to having disparate data centers connected through a patchy network.
Yeah, sure. And the freedom that you have in the cloud, if you use a service like Amazon, there's a lot of debate about geo-sovereignty of data and where that data is stored. Because we're a cloud-based service in Amazon, our clients can put the data wherever there's an Amazon cloud. So you want it in the UK, it can be in the UK. You want it in North America, it can be in North America. You want it in Germany, sure. You want it in Singapore, great. And we can set that up as easy as it is to set it up in one location in a dozen locations.
Well, Matt, it sounds amazing. Just before we wrap up, is there anything that's coming up that's happening with SteelEye in the next few weeks or coming months?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things. We've just had a phenomenal response from the market. Today we announced a partnership with Ernst & Young, where we're part of their fast growth support group. They recognize the speed at which we're growing, and they're helping us make sure that our business is structured well, but also that we can execute in the market as fast as possible. We have had a great response from our clients, and we're doing some really neat, innovative stuff in data analytics. I'm really excited about that. I think, in the next 6 months, even though I see us having some of the best data analytics in the regulatory and compliance space, the things that the engineers have in the pipeline is just absolutely phenomenal. So we're really excited. We're excited now. We're excited about the future, and yeah, it's great.
We're going to have you come back on for an update.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
We're going to go to a short break right now, but join us in a few minutes and we'll carry on with the news.